Be fun.
Perfect.
Terrible.
Live streamed.
Live streamed. I got to do the button pushing. We got to do all that sort of good stuff. Matt, why don't you lead us off today? While I do the button pushing, we'll let you introduce everything while I go about doing the blip in the back end. Let's do that.
Absolutely, Mitch. I love this. I like giving me enough time to prepare. Anyway, welcome to Friday. I have no idea what, February 18th of 2022, everyone. This is the MCC Virtual Business Box Lunch. And as always, Mitch is doing all the button pushing, making sure that we can swear and yell, and it is not kid friendly. And Paul Fikowski on my screen is right below me. He may look a little bit different. I guess we kind of coordinated to say, you know what? 2022 is a transformational year for us personally, professionally, spiritually, and look at us go. I decided to get the first haircut of probably a year, and Paul looks like he's 17 all over again. So today's going to be about this. Mitch is going to continue to push some buttons. We're going to have some of our cohorts, our tribe members from Syndicate plug in, but really it's going to be about the week that was. Where are we at? We're 6 weeks into this crazy year of 2022. We have lots to talk about, lots to share, and I look forward to the whole process. Paul, who are you?
Thanks, Matt. I'm Paul Fikowski. I'm also a coach with MCC. Yeah, back box lunch. We took over last week. That was awesome. We were able to throw out the questions. So yeah, broker certainty with these other two guys. And yeah, we just fix problems, fix businesses, and help them to, continuously move forward. Something is always better than nothing. So, that's been burned into my brain.
Right. Hey, got somebody else just popping in. And of course, I am Mitch Kamich. I am the Savage in Business, and we are the Virtual Business Box Lunch. A little more button pushing to do. As always, some of our other cohorts are going to be joining us shortly. But as Matt said, as Paul alluded to, it's really here to help you, give us our cathartic ability to do some therapy. And now that the button pushing is there, say words like fuck. Because sometimes at the end of the week on a Friday, it feels really, really good to say it. Just like percussive maintenance. If you don't know what percussive maintenance is, I now give you permission to go look that up and Google it. Why? Percussive maintenance is when you actually hit things with other things to make them work better. And occasionally it works itself out. Just like bad words, just like hitting heavy things with other heavy things. Sometimes you got to do it to make life a little better, a little easier, a little faster. And of course, just to get you through. So here is your percussive maintenance, your catharsis, your therapy in business for the week. And of course, we're going to talk about the week that was in business. So I'm going to do a little more button pushing. I'm going to let Shannon introduce herself. And then from there, we're going to get started with the week that was in business. I got a couple of things that are sitting right at the top end, really kind of mincing around in everybody's world right now. I'm going to get the perspective of the panel, and it's stuff that we've covered a little bit before, but this one's really specific right now because we've all had a little bit of that cold water effect over the last couple of weeks to this one. But Shannon, why don't you introduce yourself for everybody else? And then as other people are cropping in, we'll get them on here and get them moving as well.
Okay, I'm Shannon Berry. I co-own and operate Mad Women VA Services. So we're a virtual assistant company that helps people get their business stuff done on a smaller budget. That's it in a nutshell.
Outstanding. One more button to push, and I think we are good to go. We are good to go. Fantastic. All right, we're done all of that crap. We can come right back to you guys. Now, week that was in business started because I was asked a really important question about just being able to provide information and insight. It's also driven from a content perspective. This is marketing. I get to talk to you guys. You hear us talking. If you think we're smart enough, maybe you want to come and talk to us about business, etc. But more importantly, there are so many things that happen throughout the week in an average business owner, an average entrepreneur's life that just don't make sense because business is iterative. It means that we just kind of deal with the things that happen as they come along. Because of that, often we just don't have a resource to go to. So if you got someplace to come, your warm blanket every single week, your hot cup of cocoa, or thanks to this bad boy, a refreshing scotch just to get you through the week, right? Got to do what you got to do sometimes, right? Don't drink and drive.
I love scotch.
I love scotch too, but don't drink and drive. Okay. Don't. I have a bar in my office because my office is in my home. I have to navigate stairs and that's it. Please don't drink and drive.
Yes,
Otherwise,
he lives in a barista.
yeah, exactly. Right. Actually, this one is yeah, love it. All right. Week that was in business. Utilities. Who here got a higher utility bill than expected in the last week or two? Who here got a lot higher utility bill in the last week or two? And for everybody out there watching right now, who got a higher utility bill than you expected at your home, at your business, and if you own multiple properties because you're invested in real estate, saw that go up by 20, 30, 50, 60, 100% just in the last couple of weeks compared to December. And no, that is not just because you left the Christmas lights on. That happened for a reason. It's something we're all dealing with right now. But I want to get some perspective from the panel as well, because this is not just a short-term problem. This is going to be a long-term problem, and it's going to start causing cash flow issues. My power bill doubled. Now, I run Christmas lights from like the last week of November right through to this year, the third week of January. So some of that's on me, right? But LED lights are pretty efficient. And I didn't run enough LED lights to literally double my power bill from the previous month. So what does it mean? What do we have to do to mitigate it? And of course, we got to plan for it moving forward. So first of all, utilities, those things and services that are non-negotiable that we have to have. You have to be able to turn the lights on. You have to be able to put the heat on. You have to have water come out of the taps for a bath or a shower or to wash your dishes or to flush the toilet and do those other things. These are non-negotiables in life. These are things that we are dealing with right now. A little bit of culture shock for everybody. I think we can agree. But what do people have to be mindful of next? And how can they combat this? How can they mitigate it? And more importantly, what should they do with that being? Because they're not going to go backwards, but we can get smarter with it. Let's start from there. What do we got?
I'll pipe in real quick, and I think it's interesting that you bring this up because Shannon and I were just chatting about this through Signal. I will get back to you later today with all those answers, but it really just comes down to no different when petrol prices went up years ago. It's going to set a new standard, a new baseline, right? So I feel you have to look at a program for cost savings. And again, when you talk about labor shortages, supply chain, all of these things, it's going to affect those providers. And we're now seeing that based off of their increases, not only in the commodity price, which it does every year around Christmas, right? Because they know that things are going to be on more, but it's really going to be about their increased cost based off of infrastructure, right? And it's now to a point where they've built in, and I won't use any specific names, but there are two major providers, one for electricity and one for gas. They've built the infrastructure and now they want to get paid, but that infrastructure is aging. So repair costs are going up. So you just now need to look at and really dive into LED lights. Like Mitch, you had said, I am 100% LED lit in my house and we're super mindful. I am a typical dad. I follow my kids around and turn off all the lights. And I've now gone to timers and smart devices for everything so that it will, it beeps my phone if a light is on for more than 2 minutes. That's not micromanaging. That's simply like, if you can save a couple $100 a year, do so. So I think commercially, people are going to really need to dive into their efficiencies. And there's some great programs out there right now from the government that can help offset some of those costs.
Good.
I think too. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
Oh, in our household, we've gone to headlamps and stealing other people's power for cost.
That's a
savings.
solid plan.
The neighbors are going to be very surprised when they get their power bills.
Yeah. No, but I'm totally on board with that. I mean, I just had a conversation with somebody recently. Right now, I'm kind of scared because I'm moving into a slightly bigger place here right away. But right now, I only pay my electricity. I've never had my electric bill go over $100, not even in the deep. And you have to understand, I live in a heritage building, so I have to run space heaters. And when it goes minus 20, this place is an icicle. My last power bill, just power bill, was $242. in under 500 square feet. I swear, I've got 3 lights, 1 TV, a laptop, and my appliances. That is all that runs. The only addition was a space heater. And my bill in 3 months went from $60 to $242. So as much as we need to plan for that, and that some of it is we can't, like when it goes like that crazy, how do you just plan for that? So I think we also need to start putting some pressure on our MLAs and our MPs and that sort of thing, because as much as I'm a capitalist and I totally get why we don't want caps on our insurance, we don't want caps, economically speaking, it was the worst possible time for those caps to be removed. And now those companies that are those service providers are managing almost on a monopolistic level. And they have made it very clear to us that they don't care if we can afford to, if we have to choose between eating or heating our house, they don't care as long as they're making gross amounts of money off of it. So yes, we need to plan. And it's never a bad thing to say, hey, how can I do this more ecologically? Right. But at the same time, there's some factors that are at play right now, as far as I'm concerned, that we don't have control over, and we're just going to keep getting. I'm trying to think of appropriate terms because I know this is being live streamed, but I think you get the idea.
I checked the box. It's okay. You can get away with a little bit.
Okay. So how about we're just going to keep getting bent over the table on if we don't stand up and get our government officials to actually start representing us.
Yeah, I think the problem has been there for so long with not putting money into infrastructure, whether that's on governments or it's on the corporations themselves, or it's even in the end consumers not wanting to pay more for utilities. We have to look down the chain. Was it something that a former government did, saying don't use coal, let's put in natural gas? That that changeover is a big cost. So are we starting to see the effects of that cost now from what happened 3 years ago? Plus you have different taxation coming in. In Canada, we have carbon tax that continuously increases on that side as well. So, I don't think it's just one situation. I think it's been a chain of events, and you could probably go back 30, 40 years where, we'll just tape it together, because you got to remember the Eastern Seaboard blackout was caused by a trash panda. Yes, a raccoon caused the entire Eastern Seaboard. So that power structure is taped together, in my opinion, and nobody wants to pay for it. So it's kind of a tough situation to be. And then you have commodity prices pushing up. So anytime there's inflation, commodities going to be a part of that. And then Matt touched on it too, supply chain, right? So I think it's with us for a long time.
Lorette, thoughts?
It really comes down to the value of a soul. Like, people don't care about people, period. They care about money. So I don't know. It's like fear versus faith. So you can let the fear of inflammation scare the shit out of you, or you can have faith that everything will work together with the common good. But I think the problem is actually we don't care about people anymore. We don't care about you. Especially the power company, they just care about the bottom line of the money of what, I can make this off of this person. Why would I not do that? So where does faith come in? Where does fear come in? Where does the value of a soul come in? Where does the value of people come in? Is how I would respond to that.
Okay. So panel, let's stay on this topic for a moment. But what I want is an actionable step. There's big, middle, little things that people could do next, right? Little things, change to smart devices. Look at the way your consumption is going in your house. Middle steps, calling your actual supplier, doing a little bit of hunting and research to see what's going on out there. We talk, so much talk happens in the marketplace right now. Don't get in a contract, don't get in a contract, don't get in a contract, don't get in a contract. But let's actually call a spade for a moment. If you actually got into a contract a year ago, you were screwed. If you got in a contract 4 years ago, your rate's preferable now than it was this month and what it's likely going to go up to. Would that have made more sense? That's something you need to explore for yourself, or there are alternatives and options. Do you call your suppliers as well and say, yo, what the hell? And how many times has the person on the phone heard that, right? And then you go to the big steps. Is it time for more autonomy? Is it time to consider solar? Is it time to look at different ways that we do this? Is it time to upgrade? It's also been never more attractive in the household. It's like, Mitch, you're going to advocate buying a new house? I said, go big. Buy a brand new house, get geothermal, put solar on the roof, and get as off-grid as you possibly can. Then what's going to happen? Your power bill ain't going up. And if you got solar, your power literally falls out of the sky. Let's give them some mechanics to follow through with.
Well, I think that, again, like you just mentioned, build a newer house, bigger house. I think that may be a course over the next decade that you're going to see multi-generational families truly hit North America. It's been a mainstay in Europe, Middle East, all of these things. And, with some of the fear early on in the pandemic based off of some of the more vulnerable aging population, a lot of people took them out of those multi-unit facilities, right? So now all of a sudden you have grandpa, on the main floor, you have somebody in the basement and somebody upstairs, right? So that could be something that we see happen. And I know that there are communities being kind of developed and built that are far more ecologically sound. And again, Mitch, you mentioned geothermal, solar. Everything's more expensive when they're new, right? Like people always talk about, with me specifically, solar's not efficient. Oh, it's really expensive. Well, you know how inefficient coal was, right? And they obviously refined it and they did all those things. And how inefficient a combustion engine was and really still is based off of its production, supply and demand. So as more people really move the needle towards more sustainable, then we're going to see that price and effectiveness come way down. Because again, even for myself, I would love to have put solar on my roof, right? And there's now companies out there that will help mitigate that upfront cost or risk. But again, people know that their bill is going to show up from their natural gas provider, and it's just comfort. And I think now we need to start looking at those change leadership skills that we've developed through the pandemic to really look at some of the commodity part of it too.
Yeah, it's what can I do now, right? And if you have an energy audit, you can get an energy audit done on your house. But the best and cheapest solution is insulation and caulking. That's where most of your airflow goes through. So there are other rebate programs or even grant programs for insulation, depending on where you live. And there's also solar. If you could get half of your solar system or solar panels paid by the government, yes, please. Like, how long before they take that away? So, it's what can I take care of right now? What's the cheapest and easiest way to fix it? It's insulation and caulking. And from there, it's appliances, right? Your dryer, your fridge for power. So if you have older ones and you're able to upgrade it, perfect. And then, what's the future? What can I do moving forward? And that's where you want to look in and see where are the incentives on that side. So it's less of a cost out of your pocket. And then really, comparing the costs on that side, because I know, there are rebates and there's financing that's available if you're into the, the solar side of things. It's maybe that's a potential option to offset rates that are just going to continue to climb.
There's a bit of a flip side to that though, because not all of us are homeowners. So I think there with the new buildings and that sort of thing, maybe there should be something put into place that we're encouraging people who are renovating and upgrading living spaces, apartment complexes and high rises and that sort of thing, to also be instituting these things. Because as a renter, the only time I ever want to be a homeowner is if I've got revenue properties. I honestly don't care about home ownership. Been there, done that, hated it. So as a renter, I can switch out all my light bulbs, I can do that kind of thing. I can put things on timers. I can make sure that when I'm not in a room, a light is turned off and that sort of thing. But when it comes to the solar, the geothermal and that sort of thing, I have to rely on the construction company and the management company of my building to take those initiatives. So I think maybe more needs to be done on that side of things. The building that I'm moving into here shortly, it's an older building, but there's a new portion, which is what I'm moving into. It was finished in 2019, I believe it is. And being as new as it is, it's a 4-stair building. There's no solar panels, there's no rooftop garden, there's none of those incentives has been put into place that way. And I have in-suite washer and dryer, and I have to pay for my own water, right? So, and I don't even know what system that's being delivered through in the building. So when you have a limited thing, I think when it comes to how we're dealing with it, we need to start reaching out to developers and saying, here's incentives, here's something we need to start getting you thinking about these, because a lot of times they won't put them in because building materials are already so expensive. Why are they going to pay $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, whatever it is for geothermal and hope they drill the hole in the right place, right? So a little bit more needs to be done on that side too, I think.
I was going to say, just screw the whole thing. Screw the system. Van life it is. Like, I'm not going to play the game. I'm just going to buy a van and travel, period. So like, then I pay no electricity, no gas, and like go on a little adventure. Like, that's the only way I can describe that. You can play the game or you can play your own game. So I'm like, why not van life? So I'm down with the van life. That's my answer.
Living in a van down by the river.
Darn right. Yes.
All right, listen, we started off with a topic that people hate. I can tell you already that people hate it because our live audience has dropped to nothing, right? People are like, you're talking about utilities. Boo! I know you can hear me out there and you can see this going on YouTube, that Paul's just got off camera. Love that too, right? Or actually, he's going back on to log in with his other account so we get another live follower. Love that too, right? But no, it is something that is desperately important. Sometimes we have to talk about unsexy shit. We got to talk about the stuff that nobody likes. You got to talk about whether or not van life is it. There needs to be alternatives. We spend so much time, and so this goes to our next topic. Now we've talked about utilities for a moment, power bills, and nobody likes that. Nobody wants to call the power company. Nobody wants to be the person answering the phone the other end and going, this is the 100th person I've talked to in the last 5 hours, and they're going to chew my ass out because it's like I personally did this to them. Meanwhile, that poor bastard is only making 15 or 16 or 18 or 20 bucks an hour to answer the phone and deal with your grumpy ass, about your power bill. It's no win. It is a no-win scenario. So we have to change the way we do that dialogue. It forces us to think differently. So because we're forced to think differently, and once again, I said it's topics we have touched on in other areas in the past, but we've never quite addressed this way. What is, and we've talked about new skills, we've talked about new development, areas that businesses have to focus on, looking at investing in people, talking about money and stuff like that. But we have to think differently moving forward. And that starts with those areas that are first native to us. In other words, our home, where we live, what constitutes a roof over our head, what the minimum acceptable threshold for livelihood is, right? What constitutes the absolute essential portion that has to keep us whole every day. And then what we do professionally. We have to essentially change our view on money. We have to change our view on what we constitute our home. We have to change our view on how we do business. That's all been tested and flipped sideways in amongst the pandemic. So let's give people from the middle of February something to do for the next 30 days, because just calling and asking about your bills or considering solar or living in a van down by the river can all be viable alternatives, but you have to first start with what you consider your acceptable minimum standard. So let's give people something to work on, or how to strategize and battle plan from that standpoint, because that touches on everything from our home to the way we do business. I stopped doing business face-to-face 2 years ago. And what did it mean? Everything went faster for my business. Everything got quicker. everything compressed. I do a lot more in a day now than I've ever done in the past. And yet when I unplug at the end of the day, I feel whole and I walk 30 feet to see my family. I can tell you right now in my house, my wife is sitting there, and I know I don't mean through the roof of the cafe. I can tell you she's sitting right there. So let's give people a roadmap for the next 30 days, stuff they got to work on, because shifting the way you think about home and money and the way you do business and stuff like that has to be part of the parcel with this too, because that's going to tell you whether or not you're going to need a multi-generational house with solar and geothermal, or whether a van down by the river is a viable alternative. You put a Starlink dish on the roof of that van down by the river, and then you got internet that'll never go down. Thank you, Elon Musk. Right. So what do we got? Let's
I would say this. I want to chat about the unsexy part of this. And
yeah.
I agree. Nobody wants to talk about this kind of stuff. But as business owners, like, we chatted mostly residentially and personally, but obviously that all reflects into the corporate entity as well. And even more so because, again, a restaurant has to have natural gas and it's on like 24/7, right? So their costs have ballooned far more than what I would, because again, I can actually turn the heat down, but they need to have certain equipment fired up at all times. Now, the thing that I find very interesting is that it speaks to all the conversations that we've had in the past. If it's not of interest to you, you're not going to make the right choice, meaning find somebody better that can do it better, that understands it better, and ask a question. Like, just pick up the phone, and rather than calling the direct corporation, because they're going to be a salesperson, right? So like, if you call the big electrical provider, they're going to sell their product. Go to a broker, go to somebody that has worked in the field that doesn't really have an allegiance to one brand, so that you can, no different than a mortgage broker, go out and find what is the best suited for you. And corporately, they need to do this. Like, this is going to be some of their biggest costs and expense on a month to month, that they need to not throw this, or, you know, throw it under the rug or put their head in the sand, because it will erode their margins so much. But I do believe that they have analysis paralysis. They're like, man, my lights turn on, I'm just going to pay the bill, because what I don't want is for us to make a change and then the lights don't turn on. So that I understand, but that is, again, just about asking the right questions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can echo with like the power of the tribe. So like, I think we're heading more into a tribal mentality. Like, people are going to live with like 5 or 6 people. Like, it happens already with like families that have moved from, I don't know, fill in the blank, and come and move here. There's like 8 people in one house. I just think it's going to be more normal to have like maybe 2 or 3 families in a house instead of one family. So I have a feeling that's going to be trending, is like moving in with people that you know, like, and trust.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it already has been trending on that side too, right? Just coming from the real estate side, having to chop up a 1,200 square foot bungalow and putting a suite in the basement. Airbnb has opened that up. Rent a room out in your house on that side. So we're already moving towards that. And, I think the next step is building properties are going to be, it's going to be a smaller footprint moving forward on that side too, right? So the demand from the public needs to be, I need a better build on that in order for, the cost of utilities will be affecting me. So I want a better build. I want a better insulation. I want a better this that can be put into the build cost. But really it's an estimate of where you're at and what can you change? What is within your control that you can do? Can you change a light bulb? Yeah. Can you put some insulation in? Yeah. So that's the stuff that you do right now. And then it's the planning out. Am I going to stay in this property? Do I need to downsize? Can I put a suite in? Can I rent something out? What is within your control? If it's a site, a building that you own commercially, are you using all the space effectively? Can you rent out even part of the yard space? Not even talking something attached to the building. So it really is brainstorming a little bit and going, what do I have? What opportunities can I use to offset my costs?
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think we're kind of lucky that I think most of us are from, everybody on the screen today is from Alberta. But if you've ever been to BC, I mean, this trend of multiple families coming together, building a house, it's been happening there for years and years. That's how they can afford those houses there. BC has got some of the most expensive real estate, possibly in the world. I think Vancouver, the only city that's more expensive to have a house in, is Hong Kong, they say. So, but you'll be driving down the road and you see these like huge mansion style houses, and then you find out, well, that's because the aunt, the uncles, the cousins are all like, they've all gone in on the purchase of this and the build of this home, and then they've designed the home so that they all kind of have their own private spaces within the house, but they're all pooling their resources together, and they've got one big main kitchen where all the cooking and that happens. It's not a new concept at all. I think it's just kind of new to Alberta, in a lot of respects. But yeah, that's definitely something that I think that we're going to start seeing more of too. It's going to start to trend more across Canada, across North America, this idea of this living. I mean, if you go to Japan, if you go to China, again, this has been happening for years and years. They've got these 400 square foot apartments and 6 people living in them. I don't know how they do it. It would drive me bonkers, but it's completely normal in those cultures to live that way. And I think we're going to start seeing more and more of that, just because, yeah, things are getting so expensive. You have to, if you want to have a decent lifestyle, you have to share some of those expenses, and you have to be more conscious about how you are managing your own resources in providing for that. And whether that be your business, whether that be your home life, I think it's really coming down to this conscious delivery, conscious thought of, how is this impacting the world? How is this impacting my neighbors? How is this impacting my lifestyle?
Mhm. Mhm. So if you haven't yet, you've guessed the theme today, which is disruption. That we've got a lot of disruption economically happening right now, and we've talked about food service and commodities and all that other stuff. But we really started with a discussion about utilities, and then your footprint from a housing perspective. It is desperately important to get that right from a business owner side of things, but it's also desperately important to figure out what you're going to do from a roof over your head for your business. Brick and mortar cannot get away from it, but we'll take examples in other brick and mortar type spaces. And Matt brought up food service for a moment. A massive chain that everybody knows around the world, Pizza Hut, has started to move away from their regular brick and mortar to what? Small 280, 400, 600 square foot kiosk style takeout windows, no more sit down dining anymore. In other words, the great advent in North America of the 70s and 80s, neighborhood pizza joint where you walked in and there was one rickety table and there was a glass case at the front, and otherwise it was nothing but pizza ovens, and the one delivery driver is almost making a comeback with marketplace like Uber Eats, Skip the Dishes, DoorDash, etc. So that Pizza Hut took their entire seating arrangement operation down to 2 kitchen staff and a general manager slinging pizza out the door, still having their own internal delivery, etc. That's disruption, right? Our utilities are causing a disruption. We have to think about the way we even turn the lights on in our house anymore. Food service is changing from a disruption standpoint because it can come delivered to your house, but you may or may not have trouble getting bread or milk at the grocery store. But getting a meal from a restaurant there on the corner is not an issue, right? So we're seeing lots of these just different disruption points come up. We started to navigate a little bit when it comes to housing utilities, but we're seeing it in the form of jobs, job sharing, job changes, side hustles, the way work. This call alone has 3 business coaches all for the same company, but with their own individual companies separate on the side. We've got a career specialist, and we've got a VA service. Those all didn't start because we woke up in the morning going, what's the one thing I'm going to do? That happened because we made a shift monumentally, but that also means that the career services person, and that's Lorette, literally deals with people that are now not just looking to move from one job to another, but navigating multiple industries, multiple jobs at the same time. The VA service starts because the idea of fractional business is coming to the front more and more and more frequently, to the point where we see, on my screen, the top of the screen is Paul and Matt and myself. I don't know. Yeah, on YouTube, that just seems the way it's lined up right now, right? For us, we're seeing companies that are going to such stellar positions like COO, looking for fractional, not hiring full time. That's disruption. So now that we got this idea, we warmed up a little bit, and I think this is only going to be another 10 minutes. In fact, I want to put a cap on it, so everybody's got maybe 2 minutes or 3 minutes to talk. What is the whole, so both the holistic and the tangible picture for 2022 from a disruption side? What are the things people got to look at? Because we touch on different pieces all week, but what I mentioned today can also now include things like our utilities, our comestibles and our commodities, the way food gets delivered, how we work, where we work, what happens from a physical presence for your business anymore, and even to whether or not you live in a van down by the river, or you need to consider going to a more, I don't know, and certainly not a North American model, but do you have multi-generation living in the same place? Or do you look at saying, so let's set people up for the rest of the year to start thinking differently about disruption. But more importantly, what should be a plan of action? And once again, this isn't the absolute, only do this and nothing but let's set them up for that plan of action, because jobs have changed, money has changed. We've got cryptocurrency now, which can be used to buy pizzas and houses. So let's not beat around the bush here for a moment. You can make your money imaginary online and still use it to buy a pizza or a house. So don't tell me even money hasn't been, what we constitute regular money hasn't been disrupted, because somewhere out there that isn't regular quote unquote currency, I can still use to buy a car or a house or a pizza. If that isn't disruption, I don't know what is. All right, panel. I left you wide open. The barn doors are open, but let's give them a roadmap from a disruption standpoint, because this is important for us to come back to in 3 months or 6 months and stay. So the market moved, what actually happened, and what makes more sense now?
Yeah, I'll chime in real quick and very brief. Consolidation isn't a bad thing. Contraction isn't a bad thing when you talk about the physical. Again, you need to, as a business owner, maximize your expense. So you need to look at where you are from a square footage, cubic footage standpoint, and pick apart how much of that space is revenue. And if it's no longer serving you, get rid of it. And now more than ever, there's ways to do that without having to break a lease and physically move. Again, people are looking for co-work space. They're looking for warehouse, all of these things. So you just need to continue with these thinking out of the box programs that people are fatigued with. They just want to get back to the easy business that was Alberta. But they just need to continue through, consolidate if needed, and contract if needed, knowing that that could actually catapult your business into expansion. So just because you have brick and mortar and you're taking away from that or minimizing that doesn't mean that you are going to erode your revenue or your cash flow.
I think that efficiency is going to be a huge keyword this year. I think we're all, whether it be your personal life, your business life, whatever, it's going to come down to the efficiency and the impact of the efficiencies that you have or don't have in your world. Like Matt said, with the cost of the utilities, not the way that it is right now, if you've got a room in your house that you're not using and it's just costing you money to keep it lit or keep it heated or whatever, why do you have that? Same thing for your office. And now that we have this more hybrid model, because we're now used to working from home, and we've shown to our employers and to the corporations, not only can it be done, but we're better at our work. We're more efficient and productive at our work when we have the freedom to choose what works best for us to get the work done. So why are you going to carry all those overhead costs? Why do you need that big, it used to be, the big corner office space with all the glass and that was how you impress people. Nowadays, I think you just look foolish to people, because all we can think of is, how much is that costing you? Why is it costing you? Like, why do you insist on this? Half of your staff is now working from home. You've got to heat it. You've got to put in the electricity. You've got all these electronics or whatever networks sitting here that aren't being used. That just doesn't make good business sense, right? So from my perspective, especially, having taken a physical business and moved it into the online, into the digital sphere, I think that that's going to be key, is efficiency and impact. And just really quick note, like, it just down to the currency. Now we're into the NFTs, and we're into, I've got virtual real estate, that sort of thing. I would much prefer to invest in virtual real estate than real estate. I've made 600% return on it. So yeah, so there's all of these things, and we still have people going, oh, that's not going to, how long has crypto been around? Why are you still saying, oh, that's going to go nowhere, that's going to crash, it's going to burn? It's been around long enough. People, get on board. Like, it's just as volatile as the stock market, and you're not downplaying the stock market. So, this is the way that we're going. You need
Shannon,
to keep an open mind.
That internet thing is never going to work.
Right? It's just a passing fad, Paul. It's just, yeah, we're all going to get sick of it. Yeah, I agree with you.
There's-
There you go.
I'm ready, but you can go. You
Yeah,
can
you
go
go.
first.
I'm going
You probably have like a good theme at the end, so you should go last.
Okay.
So there's two types of people in the world. There's reactionary and co-creation with the universe people. So like, there's just some people that are just going to react. They're just going to not do anything, and they'll have to react to things, right? But like, the business owner took the red pill, is in the matrix, understands they can change the matrix, they can co-create with life. So like, what I have to say is, really use your creative imagination, and then do. Businesses, just do it. If there's a problem, you're the solution to the problem. That's what the entrepreneur is, oh, I see a problem, I'm going to fix the problem. So I guess that's the only thing that I really have to say is, instead of reacting to life, why don't you create with life? Why don't you start a company or do this and that?
Hey, big picture. What's coming? What's on the horizon? What's coming this year? What's coming next year? What's coming the year after? What are we politically, geographically, economically, socially? What are the big narratives that are being pushed, or things that are happening? And from that perspective, then you come down to, what can I do? What do I need to do to prepare? Or what do I need to do now with the situation at hand? So it is going to be downsizing. It's going to be getting nimble, and it is going to be about execution. And it is going to be more of a flattening of the supply chain, more of a local supply chain, as things are going to be more difficult in certain areas for imports, or there's a monopoly or a conglomerate up top that's, there's choke points so that you can't get that. People will find a way to go around that, make it work. So I see it more of this, the top down is really starting to flatten out, and technology is a huge part of that. It's a disruptor. And so I think now it's going to be coming into efficiencies, but it's also going to be more local. Who do I know within my area that can help me out? And it really is, what do I have? In my real estate business, I rented out the basement, I rented out the top, I rented out the garage, and yes, I'm not shitting you, I rented the garden plot. That's getting creative. So maybe nuts to some people, but some people don't have a yard. Some people don't have a garden, want to do it. So that's, what do you have? What can you do? Throw it out there. Who knows? Maybe someone will buy dirt and rocks from you. How do you know?
Tribe, anything else?
That's all I got to say about that.
That's all we got to say about that. Ooh. A little bit of heavy lifting today. It is February. It is the doldrums. It is one of the saddest parts of the year. Yet the weather ain't bad outside, right? It's a sucky part because bills just came in. People are still catching up from Christmas. Utilities are more expensive. All this other stuff going on. People are like, I don't celebrate Christmas. You still spent more money in December or January than you probably should have. Right? You still did. You still took a little bit of time off. You still did any number of things. You still saw the disruption someplace else. And if you are not of the proclivity that Christmas has any meaning to you at all, you still saw a hit to your pocketbook because everybody else was distracted. Nobody else has money. Okay. This is a part of disruption that happens every single year at the same time in the same place. Every year, when school lets out at the end of June, people go away on vacation for the next 7 to 10 days without fail. And it's tough to talk to people then. Every long weekend, people go away, disappear, turn off their phones, do whatever else. Heck, I remember one time dealing with a former partner of mine who was a specialist in HR, having conversations, and we used to chuckle, offhandedly at the number of people that were unemployed that still took long weekends away. Again, you don't want to try to interview somebody for a job on a long weekend, but even get communication from somebody through a long weekend wouldn't happen until, let's say it's a Monday holiday weekend, like it is for us in Alberta coming up this weekend. They still wouldn't reply to you to Tuesday midday because they were away with their family. You didn't have 5 minutes to answer. At the same time, it's the mentality. So there's some disruptions in our life that always seem really inconvenient, but happen on a regular basis. Everything we've talked about today, everything we've heard of, and everything we discussed amongst the group, the panel, the tribe today, is by and large not unpredictable, meaning that you could absolutely predict a great deal of this awful lot. It is no surprise that utilities were going to go up when we have been artificially down for the last year. It was cheaper on purpose because it was tougher for us to get by. It was inevitably and eventually going to come up. The price of gas at the beginning of the pandemic dropped to a point that we haven't seen in our marketplace in Alberta in 20 years. It was inevitably going to go back. And when it dropped from about $1 a liter, for us, to as cheap as 60 cents a liter, where were they going to make up the other 40 cents? When the price of gas went back up. What do we have right now? Gas in the $1.30 to $1.40 a liter range. Weird. It's almost like they had to make up for the discount that we had earlier when everything was there. Now, when we look at some things like inflation, that was always going to be an inevitable act based on our lending. Now, you don't have to be an economist to figure these things out. You do have to be aware enough of what's going on. You have to know that things are going to get a little more expensive post-Christmas, that you're going to have a little less money than you did before, that you're going to have certain gaps, times of the year, vacation periods, where all of that is going to, quote unquote, come home to roost.
Higher taxes.
Higher taxes. None of this is a mystery. So when we talk about disruption, there are certain disruptions that are always going to be there, inevitable, and you can start to plan for ahead of time. But when you plan for these things ahead of time, you also need to consider what you want this to look like next. So as an individual out there, as a business owner or entrepreneur, as a family member, as a family owner, as a parent or as a child, as a grandparent or a grandchild, wherever you sit on the spectrum of interacting and intersecting with other people's lives and their businesses, an awful lot of what you're going through right now, one, is universal, but two, it's not a mystery. It's something we can absolutely look at. So if you're willing to take a little bit of time to stop and look at it next, you can make life a little more predictable, but you can also make things like your money and your business and your utilities and your grocery shopping, all that, work a little more efficiently. It will not get cheaper. It's not going to. The price may drop again artificially at some point in the future, but guess what it's going to do? There's a little thing called the Consumer Price Index. If you have never heard of it, I don't know what rock you are living under. Google Consumer Price Index from the 1970s to today. Look at the last 50 years. Everything went up. every single year. You know what? If you look at the consumer price index, the price of things for the last 80 years, the price went up every single year. If you look at the price of things for the last 200 years, those things that could be still considered similar, the price went up every year. So when we buy something new, when we get something else, when we trade something off, the idea of multiple families living under one roof is not new. We've been doing it for thousands of years. The idea of changing the way we get our utilities or our power, the way we heat our home or we feed ourselves or whatever it is, hasn't changed for thousands of years. Just the delivery method has changed. The fact that we trade services, commodities, products, and offerings for money hasn't changed in thousands of years. I hate socialism. I hate capitalism. Get over yourself. There's always going to be an exchange for a shiny nickel for something else that somebody else has, because it's just the nature of what we do. We started with seashells. We did it with rocks. We mined precious metals. We came up with paper currency. Then we started to invent the idea of fiat. Then we've gone to digital, and we've gone to transactionless transactions, and now we have cryptocurrency. Guess what? It's just one way to trade a shiny nickel for something else. Get used to it. It's here. But disruption is happening on a constant basis. The disruption that we've got right now are the points where it spikes really hard, really fast. And so it hurts a lot more. Otherwise, we don't grumble. Got to get on top of it in a hurry. If you're willing to look at your bills, consider the way you buy things, change the way you think about your work, your jobs, side hustles, etc. Look at the way you view money, the way you're saving it, procuring it, investing it, doing whatever you have to, and start to think laterally, life is going to get easier. Not right now, but it will get easier in a surprisingly short amount of window, a short amount of time. And from there, you can navigate forward to what you need to. Crew, final thoughts? No? February 18th, virtual business box lunch, disruption. Life is coming for you, and it is coming fast and heavy. It is coming hard and fast, but guess what? It was doing it last month. It was doing it the month before, and it was doing the month before. That's all there is to it. So, hey, Lorette and Shannon, as always, you came and you put your big brains into this room. That's right. I heart you guys. Without you, we don't get to do this every damn week, and I love having you here. To my brothers from other mothers, Paul and Matt, of course. You're the wind beneath my wings. I love you guys to pieces for that as well, right? And I am Mitch Camage. I am a savage in business. This is the Virtual Business Box Lunch, February 18th, 2022. It's in the can, it's in the bag. When you watch it in the coming weeks, months, and years, first of all hail our robot overlords. Secondly, be a little kinder to yourself. Know that disruption is coming no matter what. So just get smarter at planning, watching for it, and start to think about different things laterally. What can I do here? We got great resources right now. You got these resources as well to get after. Make them happen. Make them work. Get it to work for you. And of course, reach out and ask for help. I am your host. I am the Savage in Business. This is the Virtual Business Box Lunch. And as always, it's great